Welcome to Simply Bitcoin. There's a $5 trillion market that no one is paying attention to that is quietly going all in on Bitcoin. Every single year, this market, they increase more and more and more of their exposure to Bitcoin. Today, we're going to be revealing a new report that suggests that 47% of these participants in this $5 trillion market have been quietly buying Bitcoin in the background. And this is an increase from 2023, where this $5 trillion market, only 23% of the participants had exposure to Bitcoin. So seems like a continuation of the trend. What's even more crazy is that 16 out of the top 25 participants in this market have Bitcoin exposure, meaning more than half of the biggest players at the top have Bitcoin exposure. So what market are we talking about? Of course, I'm talking about the hedge funds. Hedge funds, these are funds that a lot of wealthy people, a lot of wealthy individuals, they put their money with them and they want to essentially beat the market. And what a lot of these hedge funds are coming to realize is the same thing that Michael Saylor has come to realize, is that if you want to beat the market, if you want the superior investing strategy, you need a Bitcoin strategy. It's as simple as that. So I love this trend because it's a continuation of the trend of this large institutional adoption, acceptance of Bitcoin as a non-sovereign alternative asset. So you see BlackRock, you see the pension funds, you see nation states. We talk about that all the time, but we don't really talk about hedge funds. Hedge funds, it seems like they're doing exactly the same. So we're going to get into all that today. We have the receipts, latest Bloomberg article that dropped. It's extremely bullish. But before we jump into it, I do want to bring up our panelists. Of course, we have James from Stampseed, and of course, my legendary co-host, who is always optimistic, Optimus Field. So let me pull up the article that I'm referencing. So it's a Bloomberg article specifically. And the headline for the audio listeners is almost half of traditional hedge funds are dabbling in crypto. It goes on to say nearly half of hedge funds focused on traditional asset classes now have exposure to cryptocurrencies as increased clarity around regulations and the launch of ETFs in the US and Asia draw more investors into the asset class. I mean, this is something that I've been saying for a long time. The fact that Larry Fink is going on legacy corporate financial media and using all the Bitcoin talking points. BlackRock releases a report on Bitcoin. It is basically a rubber stamp of approval in the traditional financial markets that Bitcoin is a real thing. Bitcoin isn't going anywhere. You don't have to worry from a regulatory perspective. This thing is here to stay, right? And it's something that Michael Saylor has been saying as well. And of course, that gives confidence to hedge funds. And they're looking at Michael Saylor outperforming the rest of the S&P 500. And they're saying, we probably have to get on that train. That's probably a good idea. So anyways, the article goes on to say, among hedge funds trading in traditional markets, 47% had exposure to digital assets, up from 29%. I misspoke in the beginning, up from 29% in 2023 and 37% in 2022, according to the Global Crypto Hedge Fund Report published Thursday by the Alternative Investment Management Association. Among those funds, they're already invested, 67% plan to maintain the same level of capital in crypto, while the rest plan to invest more by the end of 2024. While many hedge funds first waded into crypto by trading tokens in the spot market, they are now increasingly deploying more sophisticated strategies. Among funds involved in crypto, 58 traded derivatives in 2024, up from 38% in 2023, while those trading in spot markets dropped to 25% this year after peaking at 69% last year, according to the report. So very interesting stuff. And also here is an interesting graphic from River Financial, and it kind of breaks down the which hedge funds in particular are exposed to Bitcoin and how much Bitcoin do have they bought, right? Because a lot of these, they didn't want to buy the ETFs. They actually wanted to buy spot Bitcoin. And this breaks down how much Bitcoin they actually have per hedge fund. So a lot of these you might not be familiar with. A lot of these you might be familiar with. Of course, the famous one is Bridgewater Associates. That's Ray Dalio's hedge fund. Ray Dalio is a legendary investor. And what's interesting is that, out of the top four, Ray Dalio's is number one, and they don't have any exposure to Bitcoin. Um, and that's in stark contrast with Citadel, which has 812 Bitcoin. Millennium Management has 27,000 Bitcoin. Mariner Investment Group has 930 Bitcoin. Um, Balsanary Asset Manager has 6 Bitcoin. Renaissance Tech has 286. Point 72 has 1,089. DE Shaw has 132. Opti, you're going to have to mute me a lot because I'm going to be coughing. Excuse me, guys. I'm getting over a cold. It goes on to say Version Fund Management has 93. GS Asset Management has 6,202. I can't pronounce that, but 6,739. Blue Crest Capital Management has 9. Fortress Investment Group has 1,181. Elliott Investment Management has 1,092. Two Sigma Investment has 458, and Sculptor Capital Management has 876. And of course, it also shows the increase of these purchases as well. And it seems like it's all heading in the same trend. And if you compare the percentage increase, it's a huge jump, right? So 29% in 2023 to 47%. According to this latest Bloomberg article in 2024. And I suspect that trend will continue. And the reason for that is simple: Bitcoin's superior incentives. I think that if you're competing with other hedge funds and they've adopted a Bitcoin strategy and you haven't adopted a Bitcoin strategy, you are at a competitive disadvantage. And I suspect this trend will continue. Now, what I'm really curious about is when Ray Dalio is going to come out and finally bend the knee, because eventually everyone bends the knee to the king. It's a trend that continues. Max Kaiser, I love the way that he phrases it. He says that Bitcoin is a humility test, and it is, because you come to Bitcoin, right? We've seen that meme, right, with the guy, the Superman suit. He's like, "I'm new to Bitcoin. I'm here to fix it." And then you kind of have to be okay with coming to Bitcoin and buying at the price you deserve, and coming to terms with the fact that there's nothing to fix, right? It is what it is. You're like, you're getting to when you got to Bitcoin. You have to eat your humble pie and you have to buy it. And, excuse me, even people like Michael Saylor, right? There's famous tweets of him, back in the day when he could have bought Bitcoin, below $1,000, and he was actually criticizing Bitcoin. That's part of the process, right? That's part of Bitcoin. And it takes a lot of humility. And if you're a very successful businessman, if you're a very successful hedge fund manager, if you're a billionaire, you're used to getting things your way. You're used to getting special deals. And in Bitcoin world, there is no special deal. You have to buy spot Bitcoin like everybody else, right? And just because you have more Bitcoin than somebody else doesn't mean that you have more influence over the rules of the network. And that is a tough pill to swallow for some people that potentially have big egos, and well-deserved egos, maybe because they made a lot of money in fiat world. But it's a tough pill to swallow for some people. So Bitcoin is a humility test at the end of the day. But this is huge news, breaking news, and it indicates another sector of society, of the financial world, whether it's nation states, public companies, where you see this massive adoption of Bitcoin, of the orange coin, right? So I suspect this trend will continue. I'm going to pass it on to James. James, what are your thoughts on this? It's not surprising at all, man. We're winning on all fronts. Also on the electoral issue too. Seems like the candidate that is more pro Bitcoin on the regulatory front, seems like his odds of winning are very positive. Maybe that's playing into the price rising potentially. But anyways, James, what are your thoughts on all this? And also, welcome back to the show, bro.
Yo, thanks, man. Hey, everyone. Good to be back. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like you have all these hedge funds getting into Bitcoin, which, we knew was inevitable almost. And it's surprising that someone like Bridgewater, Ray Dalio, is not in it yet, right? And what does that tell us? That their customers probably want it, their clients probably want in on Bitcoin at this point. Who knows? They're probably asking for it when they see the gains that are coming from these other hedge funds. Like, how do you not want to get in on that, and to see them essentially on zero is pretty surprising, being like one of the biggest hedge funds in the States. And what does that tell you? They're going to go towards Bitcoin and adopt it, put it in their client's portfolio, or their clients are going to demand it, and if they don't get it, they're going to leave. Just like, Italian Bitcoiners are going to, go to a different jurisdiction, a different country. If they're, if capital gains tax are increased on them, you take your 1224, you pack them up, and you go. You go somewhere where you're not going to be heavily taxed on that. So just on a more of a micro level, if your hedge fund, isn't going to hold Bitcoin and you want in on Bitcoin, you're going to make enough noise to make them, do that. And my question is, like, I wonder what their delay is. Like, how are they not in it yet? Is it just something that, is way above my head? I have no idea, why they're going in. It's just weird for them not to to adopt that yet. But I would think it's coming soon. And then, you have all these corporations. They're going to be adopting Bitcoin too. Obviously, MicroStrategy, looks like Tesla's, the groundwork is kind of in place for them to go a little bit deeper into Bitcoin and, issue bonds with or borrow against their Bitcoin rather. So it's, I feel like we're still very early, right? You don't have every hedge fund in Bitcoin. You don't have all these corporations in Bitcoin yet, but it seems like it's, these are the early days, and, gradually then suddenly, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree with you. I think these are the very, very early innings of massive institutional nation state adoption of Bitcoin. It's not only me and James saying that. We played you guys a video of Howard Lupnick, the CEO and chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald, saying that yesterday. Opti, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, it's not surprising, man. Bitcoin stay winning. The honey badger don't stop. And Bitcoin's incentives obviously continue to win the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think I personally was speculating on this for a while, and I'm really glad we got the data. And I think, to James' point, we are all kind of wondering why the big institutional managers aren't going headfirst into Bitcoin. I think there is still a lot of skepticism on the traditional financial front in regards to Bitcoin. Even though Bitcoin is maturing, there's still a lot of people that are like, why do I need to hold this internet meme coin, basically, in regards to Bitcoin? But now it's becoming basically like you need to hold some Bitcoin, especially when you see Michael Saylor out there just putting on a masterclass and showing that if you just put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and of course, Saylor leveraged that Bitcoin to basically get more Bitcoin, you're going to outperform everyone on the S&P 500. And we all have seen what's happened with NVIDIA stock this year, the whole AI craze that happened. It's basically the leading performer on the S&P 500, and yet MicroStrategy is still outperforming that. And so we're seeing that even and I hate to use this, but this is like the common vernacular here. The smartest people in the room are starting to realize that they need to buy some Bitcoin. And again, I was speculating at the beginning of the year, rather since the ETF has been dropped, that I think we're going to see the fireworks happen in Q4 about who's actually holding Bitcoin. And now we got the data that basically 50% of all the hedge funds out there are getting some Bitcoin exposure. Even though it's ETF exposure, they're still getting some Bitcoin exposure. And this does give a sense of legitimization to this asset class. And so I think this is only going to ramp up. And again, kind of harping on what James was saying, I think the biggest signal here is not only that the asset managers now are being forced to hold on to Bitcoin, but that people really want Bitcoin as part of their portfolio. And I think this is going to start to ramp up as we start to break out of these all-time highs. Because, I mean, hey, everyone likes to make some money and no one likes to get poorer. And if you aren't holding Bitcoin as your portfolio, even if it is ETF, you're basically running a race with one leg tied behind your back. Like, you need to have some Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to continue to outperform everything. And I think as we enter 2025, it's going to be the no-brainer that you have to have exposure to Bitcoin as Bitcoin breaks this six-figure mark that we're all kind of waiting for it to break.
100%, 100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we jump into the show, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. To get started, all you got to do, you put in your email address. It takes about 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up. and it's a clear 1% spread. It's obviously Bitcoin only. And what makes Bitcoin Well different than all the other on ramps is that it's completely non-custodial, which means every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, after the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. Doesn't even give you the ability to leave your Bitcoin on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Also, as a bonus, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And you can use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest for an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well, which we're going to do live for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. If you use promo code SimplyBTC, again, SimplyBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. Support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps. Head over to bitcoinwell.com today to get started. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. Lots to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go. All right, everybody, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about Stamp Seed. Usually when you buy yourself a hardware wallet, it comes with a piece of paper. That paper is labeled 1 through 12, 1 through 24. Problem is that paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. Your dog could literally eat a piece of paper. That is not the proper way to store your generational wealth, which is why here at Simply Bitcoin, we recommend literally stamping your seed into a plate of titanium. And that's exactly what the Stamp Seed Titanium Seed Phrase Storage Kit is going to enable you to do in the privacy of your own home. It comes with a hammer. It comes with an anvil. It comes with the letter stamping tools. So you can literally proof of work stamp your seed letter by letter into a plate of titanium, which is going to survive the test of time. They put a blowtorch towards this thing. They threw it in a pit of fire. They threw it in salt water. Your dog's probably not going to eat a piece of titanium. This is the proper way to store your generational wealth so that your grandchildren will, talk to you in 20 years when you pass on your Bitcoin to them. Head over to stampseed.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com website. And also stay tuned for the culture segment where we're going to further explore more about the Stamp Seed, why you should get yourself a Stamp Seed, why we recommend the Stamp Seed, and why this is the perfect solution to store your seed words for the long term. Anyways, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $67,350. Sats per dollar, 1,485. Block height, 866,084. Realized monetary inflation, 1.29%. Market cap, 1.33 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.15%. Money supply, 19,768,796 BTC. Percentage issued, 94.13%. In the grand scheme of things, we're just getting started. Anyways, Anthony Pompliano went on Legacy Financial Media. He went on SquawkBox. I mean, what I got to say about this, guys, is Opti, mute me. Thank you. Sorry, guys. But what I got to say about this is you guys know that I love the term the Overton window. Overton window is essentially the acceptable window of discourse. And I look, before Larry Fink in this year, I would say, talking about Bitcoin on SquawkBox was moving the fuck out of that Overton window. But I would say Fox Business, and thanks to Natalie and Dylan and everyone else that's going on Fox Business, have been conquered in a good way. I would say MSNBC, the financial side of that channel, has been conquered. We've seen Joe just literally anyone who's like questioning Bitcoin, he's like using all the Bitcoin talking points. So he's sold on it. Like especially when Gary Gensler went on there and him and Joe just went back and forth. And I'm like, is Joe a Bitcoiner? So I think that these networks, specifically those two, have been conquered. Now, what I want to see moving forward is I want Bitcoiners to go on legacy news networks. So when Tucker was part of Fox, he had Michael Saylor on. I think that made wonders. He had Naim Bukele on. But I haven't seen any pro Bitcoin people on the kind of more liberal networks, right? Like CNN and MSNBC and CBS and ABC. So those networks, I still want more Bitcoiners to go on them. But we're making progress, and this fucking window is shifting hardcore, right? Make no mistake. So we are winning. It is definitely going in the right direction, but I want more of it. I want everyone to find out about Bitcoin. I want everyone to know about Bitcoin. I want everyone to take the orange pill. And this is how we do it. We're getting the message out. And of course, mainstream podcasters, independent media continuing to talk about Bitcoin and expose Bitcoin. Joe Rogan's been doing that. Tim Pool's been doing that. Every time Kaiser goes on Jones, he does that as well. Anyways, guys, let's check out the clip from Pomp on Squawk this morning. Let's check it out.
Andreessen Horowitz released its annual State of Crypto report this week, and the firm put the number of worldwide cryptocurrency owners at 617 million, a new high, driven in part by the mass adoption of stablecoin. Joining us now with more on crypto, Anthony Pompliano, founder, CEO of Professional Capital Management. It's election season. We've been watching Bitcoin. Druckenmiller said that perhaps the recent move is an indication that some players think that that Trump may have moved ahead. He's moved ahead on a lot of the betting sites. Do you think that's why? I mean, it's back to 67, which is not anywhere near the high, but it is well above where it was 3 weeks ago. It was threatening to go under 59,000 again. So it's been moving up for the past week or so.
I think the market conditions are definitely playing in favor of store value assets. You see gold up 30% this year. Bitcoin's up 60%. So Bitcoin is just more sensitive and kind of more volatile than gold.
You know, I asked you a specific question about whether it was moving up on Trump's prospects.
It seems like Simply's not the only one that does the audio thing.
I think
this is like last night. Did you hear what the actual question was? Do you think it's related? Because Andrew points out that Vice President Harris has been sort of courting some of the crypto world. So
I don't think it matters who the president's going to be, right? Bitcoin.
So even the last week has nothing to do with it.
I think that it is much more likely that about 6 months after the halving, you get the pricing in of the supply shock. You also have central banks around the world that are cutting interest rates. You have M2 money supply that's now expanding. And then you also have a very bullish investor base, right? If you go and you look at kind of how overlevered people are and how excited they are about stocks moving up, Bitcoin moving up, et cetera. Now, if you go back and look at right about the time where we went from, call it $10,000 for 6 months, we just went straight up from 10,000 to 64,000 in March of 2021. And so I'm not a huge believer in just like, hey, it's the month of October, everything's got to go up, because usually September is down, but it was an up month. And so we kind of invalidated that thought process. But I do believe that there is something about around 6 months after the halving, you start to work in that supply change, you get a monetary regime change. And I do think Bitcoin is going to continue to run through the end of the year.
Okay, because the reasons you gave right at the top were that you could go back 3 months when you're on, 6 months when you're on, 9 months, and they're the same thing that you've always said, the same selling points for why
Bitcoin is the simplest story in finance, but it is the hardest story for traditional financial market players to understand because it requires them to not overthink it. And I think that's a really, kind of important point, which is Bitcoin is a finite asset. If they increase the money supply, if they drop interest rates, and people around the world realize that they need a store of value, they're going to buy Bitcoin. Now, what's really interesting is Charlie Bolillo from Creative Planning put out this chart that over the last 30 years, the US dollar has lost 50% of its purchasing power. In one generation, people lost 50% of their purchasing power. They're going to look for other assets. Now, what I do think is important is that Bitcoin is not a threat to the US dollar. What we're seeing and what the Andreessen report pointed out is that actually what people are doing is they're using Bitcoin as a savings account. They're buying Bitcoin and they're holding it. They don't want to spend the Bitcoin, but they're starting to use these stable coins. And so stable coins now have hundreds of millions of users. And so just like in the traditional world where you have a savings account and you have a checking account, you never touch your savings account. That's what people are doing with their Bitcoin. It's the digital savings account. And then the stable coins are now your checking account to pay for your everyday expenses, goods and services, et cetera. And I think that by reducing the friction of switching between currencies, because now everything is digital, what you're now introducing is a multi-currency world, which historically hasn't been possible because to move from dollars to any other currency was incredibly expensive and difficult. Now we have a savings account in Bitcoin. Stablecoins are what you're going to pay for. And those two things are going to continue to ride. And stablecoins will be a huge bull market for the US dollar.
Okay, so are you seeing Bitcoin become, I mean, if you have a phone, you can have a bank anywhere in the world. Is that, in the past, you've said, that's like fairy dust. Remember, you sprinkle a little fairy dust. You've been in foreign countries and you ask the guys, you got it, and they're like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you think, can you make the case that's actually happening?
I'll give you a couple
or is it just fairy dust?
Let me give you a couple of numbers. So there's two reports that recently came out. One, Nick Carter at Castle Island, they did a huge study with Brevin Howard, Visa, et cetera. And then there's a new guy who's the head of economics at Tether. They both put out a bunch of data. And so the data points were Tether claims that they have 330 million people on chain, not in centralized exchanges, on chain with Tether in those wallets. If you add in centralized exchanges, tens of millions more. So let's call it 400 plus million people just with Tether. Then Nick Carter, Visa, Brett and Howard went and they looked and they said 2 out of every 3 emerging market crypto users have converted stablecoins and their fiat currency. So they're going back and forth between these assets. And then they also said that 40% of these emerging market crypto users have bought a good or service.
Whoa. Guess
Lost
Nico?
He's out. There he is.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot I was the one sharing my screen. All right, here we go. I was trying to fix my internet.
But it is a very high penetration of usage for the stablecoins for the people who have
I
them.
mean, because you can paint this unbelievable picture, Andrew, that there's people in high inflation countries that work their ass off, and then a week later, whatever they work for is worth 10% less in a week. And if you were to go into Bitcoin, there's a place where but I don't know if it's really happening.
I think there's a huge story right now. We'll see if it happens. Stripe is reportedly looking at acquiring one of these stablecoin businesses. And so when you start to look at a digital payment provider saying, hey, look, let's go and adopt these stablecoins. Again, stablecoins are for payments, Bitcoin is for savings, which historically Bitcoiners have said, you're going to spend your Bitcoin. But right now it is dumb to spend your Bitcoin in America. You get taxed and it's a huge issue.
Oh, thank you. Would you say you've been getting at it relentlessly all day ready?
Every morning
Since the minute
with a smile.
You've been getting at it. We got to do that. Do you? There's days I'm not. I don't feel relentless at all. Yeah, I think he does.
You guys are doing just fine.
You sure?
I'm positive.
More coffee or something below. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. Anyway.
When we come back.
Oh, I forgot. I have a very important question. One question that's super important. Do you think that Peter Todd is Satoshi Nakamoto? Did everybody watch the HBO documentary last week?
I didn't watch it, but I saw the guy. I hope not.
Do you think that's him?
Andrew, we're all Satoshi.
Oh, all right. I mean, look, okay, so lots to break down there. I know Opti is not a fan of stable coins. I would say I'm a free market maximalist, and what I see with stablecoin adoption, specifically in South America, in the developing world, the original thesis by Bitcoiners was that it was going to be Bitcoin that was going to be adopted as a non-sovereign alternative to local fiat currencies. What you've been seeing in the developing world specifically is huge adoption of Tether and USDC and all these non-sovereign alternatives. And my thesis, and I'm not the only one that feels this way too, is Samson Mao does as well. I think that's a natural stepping stone. Obviously, stablecoins don't offer the decentralization benefits that Bitcoin offers. At the end of the day, you can knock on the door of whoever runs a lot of these stablecoins, and you can put pressure on the companies, and they can freeze accounts. So it doesn't give you, unconfiscatable wealth like Bitcoin gives you, which is specifically important in countries that have particular political environments. So, yeah, I think that this trend is, and Keith has a really good point. Buying stablecoins means Circle and Tether are buying treasuries and feeding the monster. I 100% agree. But I think we also have to just look at the adoption of it, right? The original thesis was that people were going to be using Bitcoin as alternatives in developing countries. That wasn't the case. Bitcoin is still being adopted in developing countries, but people are seeking stablecoins more so than Bitcoin. I think it comes down to an educational issue. And I think it also comes down to like this cultural thing. So like I'm originally from Venezuela. Opti's originally from Mexico. If you're in Mexico, you're in Venezuela, and you get $100 bill, that is like the equivalent of gold, right? You're looking at it, you're like, I got $100, and compared to the local fiat currency, like in Venezuela, the Bolivar, you're like, this thing is, I'm rich, right? And even if the currency inflates in the US, it's still way superior to the local currency in Venezuela. So I think that it's a stepping stone though, because as the future generations are born into a world where Bitcoin has existed, just like the Zoomer generation is internet native. They were born into a world where the internet has existed. I think that trend will shift. That's why I make the case that it's a stepping stone. It's a step in the right direction. It's getting people to use non-government. It's getting people to take self-custody of stablecoins. It's getting people to use apps to house their money, to store their money, to transact. And then what is the inevitable conclusion? The inevitable conclusion is, okay, let me try this Bitcoin thing as savings. So is it ideal? No. Is it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. And I think the point that Pomp is trying to make there is that Bitcoin is a savings account and stable coins are a checking account. I think that's the case for now. I think in 20 years, it's just going to be Bitcoin. I think this is like a temporary thing. That's my humble opinion. But at the end of the day, let's see what the free market decides. Opti, I know you're going to chew me up on this topic specifically. So go hard, and then we'll pass it on to James.
Well, I mean, Keith basically laid it out, and I think that is my biggest gripe with it. I totally understand where you come from. And actually, before I go on, where's the troll in the chat that says Nico loves stablecoins and he's a shitcoiner for it? This is your day, bro. No, but being completely honest and
I hold zero. I hold zero stable coins.
I know, that's why it's funny. That's why it's hilarious. But no, like, that is my biggest gripe, basically what Keith said. I am not here to perpetuate the fiat system. And if you kind of really get into the nitty-gritty, that's seemingly what stable coins are doing. Circle and Tether are buying a lot of treasure. I think Tether is it's like the 6th or like 9th biggest holder of U.S. treasuries. So the more you buy Tether, the more you are perpetuating the fiat system. And that's not what I'm here for. I am here for Bitcoin, and I want more people to hold Bitcoin. I want the world to use a money that is not controlled by any small cabal of people. And that's what I think Bitcoin is. And so, yes, I totally understand that people out there are kind of lulled to sleep by the idea of stable coins because, look, Bitcoin volatility is a thing. And since Bitcoin is still getting adopted, it's still in its adoption phase. Of course, there is volatility. And hey, if you're in the first world, then of course you can deal with the volatility because we're telling most people to put your excess, your profits into Bitcoin and not touch that Bitcoin. But if you're using a money and you barely have any excess, like, volatility is going to be hard for you to deal with. I mean, I know the last bear market, what was it, in like 2021 or whatever that we're just getting out of, like, it was personally tough for me to basically be all in on Bitcoin, considering that, like, that's the only money I'm using. And it does make it harder to live. Like, there is a lot more considerations. And so volatility is still a thing. So I get why people want to use stable coins, because you don't want to put in money and then your purchasing power gets, cut in half or whatever it's going to be in the next bear market, or if we see another bear market, and you want to try to maintain as much value as possible. And if you're living basically, paycheck to paycheck or dollar to dollar or whatever, peso to peso, like, you want to maintain that value. But it is, I think, a first step. Like, what Nico said, I think, is very important, that this is an education thing. And if you are so used to using, your local fiat currencies, and $1 seems to you to be $1, obviously you don't want to put $1 in Bitcoin. It's in a bear market, and then whatever, it's 50 cents or 30 cents or whatever, like, that's going to scare you away. And so you do want this sense of stability, because people do believe that the dollar is stable. $1 does seem to equal $1. And so I totally get this. Being the contrarian here in the Bitcoin maxi, I think Pomp's wrong personally. Bitcoin is for payments. Bitcoin is for savings. Bitcoin is the best money in the world. It's a unit of account. It's a medium of exchange, and it's a store of value, but it is in its monetization phase. And so there will be some volatility. And, I get why people make that first step into stablecoins. Obviously, I think all roads lead to Bitcoin, and they'll eventually become Bitcoiners. But hey, this is where we are. And also, let's not forget the big elephant in the room, that basically stablecoins, aka Circle and Tether, are already the pseudo CBDC out there. They can already cut off you from using it. Like, they've been known to basically, cut people's transactions off. So, a lot of people are thinking that the CBDC is going to come from the federal government. I've been kind of more down the rabbit hole that I think the CBDC is going to come from the private sector, and we already have it. It's basically Tether and Circle. So this is why I want people to use Bitcoin, because it's truly the only censorship-resistant, permissionless money in the world. And I think that is how we fix the problems that we're in.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on that. I'm gonna pass it on to James. So my counter, I'm playing devil's advocate here, is most people, specifically the developing world, you're living paycheck to paycheck. Even in the United States, right? So you don't have the privilege of being able to save in the first place. And what exacerbates that, makes it even worse, which is why I believe stable coins have been adopted at such a scale compared to Bitcoin, is that you don't want to deal with the volatility if you are just trying to save to make ends meet just to get through the week, right? Which is why I believe that stable coins are being adopted at such a rate compared to Bitcoin. If you do have the excess capital, excess savings, then even in the developing world, people are actually buying Bitcoin. But I think that in where Bitcoin is in its current history, it is functioning as a store of value. I think that within the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to transition to a medium of exchange. I just don't believe that it's there yet. And I also believe that I hope it doesn't get there yet because I still want the volatility, bro. So, if it gets to an area where, we're trading at $1 million per coin, the volatility, it's going to be a lot harder for Bitcoin to 2x at $1 million per Bitcoin, because of the law of large numbers, etc. So at that point, then if the volatility is lower, then it kind of makes sense for it to be more of a medium of exchange. I just don't think that it's there in Bitcoin's history right now. And for the record, I don't hold I hold as little fiat as possible, and I don't hold any stable coins. Anyways,
Confirmed.
anyways, James, what's your take on all this? I mean, bro, I can't tell the truth. Like, are we that like?
Yeah, like 100% with you. Like, look, the facts are the facts, and people are adopting stable coins right now more in developing countries than they are Bitcoin. And look, we're here to relay the facts. So give Nico some slack here, but you can also give him some flack here as well.
James, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, I never really, I don't hold stable coins, never did actually. I've held other shit coins in the past, in the early days of Bitcoin journey, but I don't really know. I'm kind of like stuck in the middle of what you both are saying, literally and figuratively right now. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the people in these developing countries, right? Their national currency is volatile, right? They're looking for something that's not. They're looking for something that's stable. If they're living paycheck to paycheck, they don't have the luxury to save right now, possibly. So it kind of makes sense that they're flocking to a stable coin. And I understand what you're saying, Nico, where it's almost like a gateway to Bitcoin. You're going through all the motions. It's good for Bitcoin adoption if you're looking, if you have a longer outlook on adoption, which there is. So they're getting their apps, they're hooking everything up, they're purchasing, they're DCAing, they're spending through the apps. Most importantly, they're putting their stable coins into self-custody, and they're knowing how to take that responsibility of self-custody. So those are all good things that are, if you're going to be holding Bitcoin long-term, and getting comfortable going through all those steps and going through all those motions while Bitcoin is volatile, and you're more comfortable with a stable coin, could be a net positive for Bitcoin adoption. So I don't know. Like I born and raised in America. The dollar has been the currency that all these other developing countries wanted. So I just kind of have to put myself in their shoes a little bit. Me personally, I don't really know anything, not much about stable coins. Don't really study it. But based on what you guys are saying, it makes sense, that they are holding it. It probably is smart for them to do that. But based on Bitcoin's volatility, like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, bear market hits, you're at a loss right now. They might not be able to afford to do that. They might also not be saving. I lived paycheck to paycheck at one point in my life. I wasn't saving. I didn't have the luxury to do that. If I tried to save, I was pulling that out the next week. It never really worked out. But I was able to pull out exactly what I put in. If the market's down, you can't pull out what you put in. You're at a loss, and that could be a risk these people don't want to give up. But like you said, like I echoed before, going through those motions, it's great. If you're learning how to spend with the app, if you're learning what self-custody is, you're very close to Bitcoin exposure. And maybe you start just trickling in every now and then. So for anyone in those developing countries that might be listening, DCA into Bitcoin. Even if it's $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, just buy it, get used to it. Know what it feels like to hold it, and that could be the snowball effect for yourself right there. You might just be purchasing more and more as time goes on, and as more people have it, as volatility decreases, you have I don't want to say a stable coin, but Bitcoin would be a little bit more stable, and you could rely on saving and spending it if you're living in one of those countries. But for me, Bitcoin only, and anything that's leading towards Bitcoin adoption is a good thing. And it's a good point you made before. They're learning self custody, they're learning how to hold their private keys. They just need to be holding something that's a little bit better, a lot better.
Hey, Nico, one last thing. Guys, by definition, a stable coin doesn't have the upside of number go up. So I don't know. Do with that information as you will.
No. I mean, it's still fiat. It's still fiat. It's non-sovereign fiat. Basically, it's very strange. But no, it of course it doesn't have the volatility. It doesn't have the upside. Bitcoin goes up and to the right forever. Stable coins, because they're fiat, their purchasing power goes down and to the right forever, right? So anyways, guys, stay tuned for the news segment. We're going to talk about Italy. Italy is proposing increasing their capital gains for Bitcoin, and that's in stark contrast with what Dubai announced a couple weeks ago, where they're just taking away that tax altogether. And then we're going to tie in the thesis from the sovereign individual, where what I believe is going to start happening over the next decade or so is you're going to see more and more people start to vote with their feet and go to more favorable jurisdictions, whether that is from a freedom of speech aspect or whether that's from a tax perspective. And that in the long term, I believe, is going to be a forcing function on governments, and it's going to cap them on how much they are going to be able to raise taxes in the first place, because people are going to be like, am I really getting the value that I'm paying up every month? Right. Anyways, guys, so stay tuned for the news segment. We have a lot to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go. Special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin. All right, everybody. Opti is going to model the Passport by Foundation devices. Does not come with Opti if you use promo code Simply, but you will get a discount. Anyways, guys, it's easy to use. It doesn't sacrifice security for convenience. So get yourself a Passport by Foundation devices. Anyways, back to the show. So let's talk about today's news. Italy plans to raise Bitcoin capital gains tax from 26% to 42%. When I heard this news, I heard Giacomo scream from halfway across the world. That is a bad joke. But yes. I mean, it's crazy. And specifically, like with a lot of these European countries, it's not like the US, where we're like, in the US, we're just fucked. And the reason that we're so screwed, excuse my language, is because the US is one of the only countries on planet Earth where there's taxation by citizenship. So what that means is, regardless of where you are in the world, if you're making income, you still have to report that income to the IRS. Most countries, if you are not making income in that specific country and you're a citizen of that country, let's say you're an expat, you move to Dubai, you don't have to pay taxes because you're not making income in that said country. I believe Italy is not like the United States. So what is this going to cause? It's just going to cause capital flight. We saw this recently too in Norway. Norway decided to raise their wealth tax, and what happened was the exact opposite. So they raised their wealth tax, and they were expecting more revenue for the government. And what happened was you saw a large percentage of high net worth individuals leave Norway, and they actually made less in revenue than they did the year before, even though the taxes were lower the year before, right? So anyways, here's the article. It says Italy plans to raise Bitcoin capital gains tax from 26% to 42%. On Wednesday, Italy unveiled its draft budgetary plan, which outlined new revenue-raising strategies. The proposal to hike Bitcoin taxes accompanies the company's aim to generate 0.2% of its GDP, translating to approximately 4 billion euros by 2025. The plan also includes raising funds through new tax regulations targeting banks, insurance products, gaming business licenses, and adjustments to the web tax. According to the deputy finance minister, the cabinet decided on this action because the phenomenon is spreading, referencing to Bitcoin. So it's like, okay, more people are using Bitcoin, we got to raise the taxes. That's such bullshit. The new budget measures are still awaiting approval from the Italian parliament, with a final vote anticipated by the end of the year. If enacted, a 42% capital gains tax on Bitcoin would make Italy one of the highest tax countries for cryptocurrency in the world. All right, moving on. So let's compare and contrast this, right? So the UAE exempts crypto transactions from value-added tax. So we covered this news when it broke, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But essentially, like, it's an even crazier thing. So basically, if you use, and this is what Pomp was talking about in the interview, if you're using Bitcoin to pay for things in the US, you have to essentially do the tax calculation for the capital gain. El Salvador, because Bitcoin is legal tender, you don't have to do the calculation for the capital gain because it's money. And what the UAE is saying is you don't have to do the capital gain from the transaction because it's just a transaction, right? What Italy is saying, like the United States and like other countries, is you do have to pay the difference for the transaction. You have to pay the capital gain. So what's interesting too is that if you're using a euro, and let's say I'm right now I'm in Europe, I'm in Paris, and I'm paying for things, and let's say the euro gains against the dollar, I don't have to pay the capital gain on that. There's a specific law for that, right? So, but it's so funny with governments, and it's so effing frustrating because they choose what laws are convenient when it comes to them when they say Bitcoin is money. But the laws that are not convenient to them, they say Bitcoin is not money. So Bitcoin is money when it comes to taxes, regulations, KML, KYC. But when it comes to the favorable laws, Bitcoin isn't money, right? When it comes to legal no, Bitcoin isn't money. You can't choose the two. That's unviable in my opinion politically in the long term. But it's funny how they're taking advantage of this. Now, of course, if you read the book, The Sovereign Individual, which we recommend so many times, none of this should come as a surprise to you. And the reason for that is simple. They predicted this back in 1997 when the book was published, and they predicted a lot of the things that were happening. And the basis of the book, the theme of the book was, and the way they theorized this is they made a lot of these predictions based on the theory of violence, like how violence is done, and also the idea that we're transitioning into what they call the rise of the information society, and that they argued that the individual would be freed from the oppression of government and the drags of prejudice. And you're seeing this on two levels. So level number one is the disintermediation of the information and the state. So you're seeing how much they're going after X. You're seeing how much they're going after Elon. We played you guys 2 videos from John Kerry, which was Secretary of State, and Hillary Clinton, which was Secretary of State. And they both said that social media was such a problem and that the First Amendment was the problem, and then it was inconvenient and people needed to get in there and moderate social media because, to use Hillary Clinton's own words, we're going to lose control if that's not the case. And to reference one of Nayib Bukele's articles that he wrote for Bitcoin Magazine, he said that one of their most important weapons is their control over the truth. And what's happening with the internet and the rise of mass scale peer-to-peer communications, which is what social media is that now you have people like what me and Opti are doing right now. We have the rise of independent media, right? So people are no longer trusting the media anymore. The trust in legacy media is at an all-time low, and people are seeking news on social media, specifically platforms like X. And it becomes very difficult for governments to control the narrative. One of the most powerful quotes I've ever heard, and originally I think it came from Jack Posobiec, was, if social media existed back in the 2000s, the US would have not been able to go to war with Iraq. And it was so powerful, that quote, right? So that's thing number one. Thing number two is the disintermediation of money, which is also enabled by the internet. And with those two things, think about it. The government can no longer control the narrative. And most importantly, now the government can't control what money you use. So the secondary form of taxation, there's direct taxation via income tax, but there's secondary form of taxation, which is more insidious and I think much more profitable for governments, is the taxation via currency debasement, aka inflation, right? And what happens if 10 to 20 to 30% or the wealthiest people in your country start to say, you know what? You can keep that dollar. I'm going to opt out into Bitcoin. Governments are going to have a hard time, specifically the U.S. government. The U.S. government prints last year. It spent $1.7 trillion more than it collected in tax revenue. 1.7 trillion. And the way that they were able to do that is by printing the difference. Anyways, so I'm going to read you some of these passages and I'm going to open up the conversation. I want to get James's thoughts. So it goes on to say, new technologies will allow the holders of wealth to bypass the national monopolies that have issued and regulated money in the modern period. Their importance for controlling the world's wealth will be transcended by mathematical algorithms that have no physical existence. In the new millennium, cyber money controlled by private markets will supersede fiat money issued by governments. Only the poor will be victims of inflation and ensuring collapses into deflation that are consequences of the artificial leverage which fiat money injects into the economy. It goes on to say, the authors have also predicted that with the rise of this new cyberspace and consequently cyber money, it will become harder for a nation state to collect taxes from its citizens. They compare the state to a farmer keeping cows in a field to be milked, but that, quote, soon the cows will have wings. They predict that that for the government to collect taxes from its citizens in this type of society, it will have to violate human rights. Even traditionally civil countries will have to resort and turn nasty. Lacking their accustomed scope to tax and inflate, governments, even in traditionally civil countries, will turn nasty. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, and disruption. Arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sabotage useful technologies, and worse. And you've been seeing this. You've been seeing the censorship. You've been seeing the sabotaging. They arrested the Samurai Wallet developers, but at the same fucking time, they just gave the TD guys a fine. That is crazy. That I don't want to curse more. That makes me so upset in so many different. This is exactly like 2008. No notable banker went to jail for the crime of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, right? TD Bank got the largest fine in history. And for them, that's a slap on the wrist. It's the cost of doing business. When our industry does it, CZ, Arthur Hayes, the Bitcoin Samurai Wallet guys, Tornado Cash, we get locked in a fucking box, bro. This is two separate standards. And that's exactly what the sovereign individual was talking about. Bitcoin is a clear and present threat. It's a threat to the existing system, and it gives the powers back to the individuals and moves the balance of power, gives the power back to the individual, and it allows you back. It allows you to take back your financial sovereignty, especially if you take self-custody and you do it in the proper way by getting yourself a stamp seed, promo code simply. But the point that I'm trying to make is things are changing, and the established order is trying to fight back. I think they're not going to be successful. And all they're going to do is just get people to move. Like if I was Italian and I saw that, I would say, all right, I'm going to Dubai, bro. Peace. And then what? They're going to just get stuck with less people paying taxes. And that's exactly what happened in Norway. That's exactly what happened in the United States. When New York and California started being very unfriendly towards businesses during the pandemic. When New York and California, people went to Texas and Florida, which were much more friendlier. So people are going to go to where they're treated best. And now that they have something that literally by stamping into a plate 12 to 24 words or memorizing it, if you're in a pickle, you can theoretically transport millions, billions, trillions of dollars in your mind. And you can go to a more favorable jurisdiction. That's exactly what you're going to see. Because people are just not going to pay it. What are Italians getting for paying 42%? So, and think about it, because it's such bullshit. Like, I'm taking the risk, but you get a 42% cut. If my risk does not pay off, are you going to pay me 42%? No, bro, you're not going to pay me shit, right? So, again, this is why the book The Sovereign Individual nails it. They see us as tax cattle. The internet has given us wings. Anyways, James, what are your thoughts on this, my friend? I'm gonna actually throw the ball at you a little bit. So the stamp seed plate. Are you gonna be? Could you make a shrunken version? A version that perhaps
that's gross, Nico.
A version
like
that perhaps
a Quad edition or.
I didn't want to go there, but let's say a version that you can hide on your person a little bit.
So yeah, I mean, we I'll tease that out. We have a 12-word plate coming out soon. It's going to be half the size of this one you see here. And you could stamp like on the front and back of that. You could just use your first 4 words and probably get a set of 24 on the front, or if you have 12-word, you're set up and good to go there. But it'll be about half the size. So yeah, it's a little more easy to conceal. But if you're worried about traveling with something that's metal, you could obviously deliberately destroy the plate. You could stamp extra letters into your words to kind of mar things up. We have an eraser stamp coming out soon too that'll enable you to do that. And then, if you're in a pickle, as you say, you can memorize it, right? You could just remember 12 to 24. A little risky there, though. I don't trust myself with something like that. You could temporarily write it on, a shitcoin like paper. We actually have waterproof paper too, which is kind of cool. A little bit of waterproof, a little bit tear resistant. We sell that on the site too for those needs. But there's ways you have to get a little creative there. You could travel around with that. So, and just a fun fact, that 12-word plate, if you already have a stamp seed kit, if you're like, I already bought one, I got to buy another kit. That's not the case. The 12-word will work with the existing stamping jig. There'll be a little adapter that comes with it that takes up some negative space, and you're off and running. You could do both 12 and 24 with that. But my thoughts on that there. And Sovereign Individual, I haven't read that one yet. That's on my list, mainly because you push it a lot, Nico. You must be an affiliate for them or something. I don't know. No, it's a good book. Well, it seems it's like one of those non-Bitcoin books. It was written for Bitcoiners before Bitcoin was a thing. So it's definitely on my list. And after hearing some of those passages, the way I look at it, like there's a war against Bitcoin, right? It's, and it's probably a silent war for most people that aren't in Bitcoin. They don't really see it, but there's definitely a war against it. And, there are battles that are being placed. One of them is the samurai battle. And I look at these like heavy, like 42% capital gains tax in Italy on Bitcoin. Like that's insanity. Oh, well, on any cryptos, that's just insanity. To me, that looks like I take that as punishment for holding Bitcoin. Like, why am I being punished for holding a better money? Is because I think that money threatens their power. And I think they know that it threatens their power. And I think that's one of the other battles that's being fought is we're going to disincentivize you holding this coin. and they're going to get nasty. They're going to fight against you. But luckily, it really doesn't matter. You just hold your Bitcoin. You put it on your plate, you travel with it, you leave the country, you go somewhere else where Bitcoin is accepted. And this is the only money that you're able to do that with. You can't do that with more than 10,000 in cash. I don't think you could travel with that much cash. It'll probably be a red flag. You're not going to bring that much gold. It's too heavy. Like, how are you going to move that around? And what are you going to do with it when you land? With Bitcoin, memorize it if you have to, keep it on your plate, circle words in a book that you're traveling with that has the seed words in it, put it on paper, whatever you have to do. You can move around with that very easily. And when you land, you're in a country that's probably Bitcoin friendly because Bitcoin's global. I've been to Prague before. I go there. There's more Bitcoiners there than the country I'm in now, I feel. So ultimately, I feel like there's obviously a war against Bitcoin. But on the other hand, Bitcoin is inevitable, and they know that. So you have to figure out how to get around, or psychologically how to get past all the ways that they're disincentivizing holding Bitcoin. For me right now, personally, it's easy. Like I'm in New York. There's not really many ways to spend my Bitcoin. I don't plan on spending it for some time. For me, it's strictly savings, long-term savings, and also an insurance in case hyperinflation hits with the dollar. But I'm hoping to just, hold my Bitcoin for decades at this point, to the point where hopefully all the shit is gone. Like, I'm just kind of hoping that there aren't any crazy taxes on this, and just trying to kind of bypass this war, get past it, and lose it if I have to in a boating accident and find it again one day, so to speak. But those are my thoughts really. And it sucks. Italy. I'm Italian. I like to represent and have like a good country there that embraces Bitcoin, but they're clearly not. 42% taxes to me is insane. I don't even understand where that number comes from. All that tells me is that you're just trying to disincentivize people from holding it, and that money's a threat to your power.
100%. Opti, 1 minute before let's go to the culture.
Yeah, of course, obviously, if this does pass, like, Italy's shooting themselves in the foot, but this is sure. This is what happens when people want to drop your currency. And I've been talking about this the last couple of days as well. We've seen even Trump kind of roll out the same idea. Like, if you want to drop the dollar, we're going to tax or add tariffs on everything you import by like 100-200%. So it's obviously a trend that's going on right now, that people are looking at their local currencies and now have another option, which is, of course, Bitcoin. So, if Italy really wants to hurt their citizens like this, people are going to up and move. And we actually have a good comment, and then we'll move on into the culture, Nico. This one is on Zapstream, and I'm not going to read your whole MPub, bro, because that's all you got. MPub 1SS goes, Italy of all countries should know better. They are the ones who tried to, quote unquote, tax the rich yachts. And the day before the law took effect, the yacht sailed away to another port, and they lost all revenues expected and prior benefits. LOL. So this is what happens with Bitcoin. As the meme goes, you vote with your feet and your pocketbook, and money flows where it's treated best. So obviously, if you are incentivized to see your home nation succeed, then you want them to eliminate the capital gains tax and let money be used as it is, as money.
100%. 100%. By the way, that comment came from Bitcoinium OG. Anyways, guys, stay tuned for the culture. We're going to talk about the Stamp Seed Titanium Seed Phrase Storage Kit, why you should get one, why the importance of storing your seed phrase the right way, the correct way, and what are the downsides of not storing it the correct way. So stay tuned for the culture. We have a lot to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go. All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Join the 12,233 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. To get started, scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. The Orange Pill app is the #1 resource for Bitcoin-only events. Also, if you're traveling, you're in a new city, you're in a city for a conference, or perhaps you've been in your city for a while, you just don't know any Bitcoiners around you, you pull up the Orange Pill app. Has a really clever geographical feature, and it will literally show you the Bitcoiners that are near you, and it will allow you to connect with them. So it'll allow you to send them a message directly, DM them. It's also one of the best ways to reach me. Don't really answer random Twitter DMs or random emails these days. But if you message me on the Orange Pill app, I'll make sure to answer every single one of you guys every week or so. So download the Orange Pill app today. Stack friends who stack sats. The Orange Pill app is the number one Bitcoin social layer. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description to get started. Anyways, I do want to open up this conversation, and I want to talk about seed phrase. So if you guys are new to Bitcoin, if you guys are tuning into Bitcoin, you guys are tuning into Simply, hear about Bitcoin, you're like, okay, Bitcoin is dope. You haven't taken self custody and all that. Seed phrase is essentially part of taking self custody. You get yourself a hardware wallet. Of course, we recommend our sponsor, Passport by Foundation Devices. And to set up that hardware wallet, there's so many ways to create a seed word. You can use the random number generator on the device. You could do what I do, which is print out all the 2,000 words, put it in a bowl, and like literally just mix it, and take one word out at a time. But everyone has a different method. I believe that some hardware wallets have like a dice roll thing that you can use. A good buddy of mine, a good buddy of ours, Opti, I believe, has a feature where you can use a 52 card deck, and you can shuffle that, and you can use the entropy from that to create the seed words. Anyways, whatever floats your boat. There's a lot of ways to create a sufficiently random seed words. After you have those seed words, what the default option from a lot of these hardware wallet manufacturers is a piece of paper. The problem is that piece of paper is a fucking piece of paper, right? So like, if a fire happens, right? Poof, you're literally your seed words will literally go up in smoke. Your dog could eat that piece of paper. I've walked into a room where I've had a book, and my dog just there's like pieces of paper all over the book, all over the room, because my dog just ate the book, right? You don't want to put yourself in that situation. So this is why, and we're very, very particular on who we partner with. This is why we recommend the stamp seed. Number one reason is, instead of writing down your seed words on a piece of paper, you literally stamp them. Let's show the website. Here we go. You literally stamp them into a plate of titanium using a hammer, an anvil, and letter stamping tools. Like literally letter by letter, like bakada, 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 until every single one of your 12 or 24 words are stamped into a plate of titanium. And the reason that we recommend that is titanium is going to survive the test of time. Your dog's not going to want to eat a plate of metal. There you go. Right there are the letters. And and titanium is one of the strongest metals on planet Earth. It doesn't rust. You guys dunked it into, let's pull up some of those videos, Opti. You guys put it in a bowl of salt water.
We actually threw it in the ocean for a year, and that's it coming out a year later. And there's nothing wrong with it. It didn't rust. That was really true. There, will this thing rust? Completely clean. Like it actually, you could see Adam over there cleaning it. It looks cleaner than when we put it in, to tell you the truth.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. So like when we say it's waterproof and salt waterproof, like we're not exaggerating it. Like literally, this is the proper way to store your generational wealth. Like this is the way that you do it. And again, you guys also put it in a pit of fire with coals. You guys took a blowtorch to it.
A roofing torch.
A roofing torch.
Cherry red. It's like the same thing as Elon Musk, not a flamethrower. It's basically that without all the nice fancy casing. And you can see the little chain links that held that plate in place are all fucked up because that's steel, but the plate itself, it's fine. There's really no problems. And like, it's metal, right? You're backing up on metal. And the one important piece there, it's one solid piece still. There's not like multiple little pieces that are going to fall apart. There's not like sandwiched layers of metal that are going to expand under heat and those little pieces come out. I call them Scrabble tiles because it's just a joke. It's a game, really. But the stamp seed plate, you could see, was hammered, bent, broken, thrown through the ringer, and everything is still there. Your words are becoming one with the metal, just like you're writing it on paper, right? You're not taking little pieces of paper and gluing them together like a ransom note from the Riddler. You actually have your letters stamped into that plate, and this is the size of a Post-it, so it has like a small form factor there. It's flat, and your words are in there. And we like to do these tests, right? Because we have to make sure that you're holding Bitcoin long term, and you're putting it in self-custody. So you have a ton of responsibility on yourself for years to come. So you have to make sure you're doing these things the right way. It doesn't make sense to take shortcuts. It makes sense to get quality hardware wallets that are Bitcoin only, like the Foundation or the Cold Card or the other wallets that are out there. And, obviously it's not great to write it on paper. I think these companies supply you with the paper so you can record it quickly, but the intention is to move that onto something like metal. But not all metal backups are created equally. And, you have that massive responsibility to hold these seed words for your future. For your grandkids, you want them to like you. You want to be a legend when you're sitting on the couch, explaining to them when you bought Bitcoin, how you held it, and how, you're going to be passing something on to them by giving them a seed plate or something like that. And you need to have a solid medium to be able to do that. Without doing so, you're just putting yourself at risk. And, you might be saying to yourself, all right, I bought Bitcoin. I bought an expensive hardware wallet. Now, why do I have to get this, this metal backup kit? But it's kind of like the completion of that entire goal for holding Bitcoin in self-custody or cold storage long term. The last swing of the hammer is, the final stage there. Now you just have to hide your plate and take care of it and make sure you don't lose track of things. Of course, you have your hardware wallet too, which, as long as that remains intact, you're pretty set up. But, if you want to, hardware wallets aren't going to last forever either. Like the electronics and technology that might fail, the wallet could break, it could become damaged, it could itself, be in a flood, or if there's an EMP attack in the future as the war on Bitcoin ensues, you're going to want to have something, solid piece of metal as such. So, the good thing about our kit is you're holding Bitcoin for life. At least I am, right? And this kit, your hardware wallet, something you're going to have for life. Maybe it's a different one, but your Stampsy kit is something you're going to have for life too. Whereas when you buy this kit, you're getting, like Nico said, the hammer, the anvil, the jig, the letters, and it comes with one of these plates. So the glory of it all is that I had a ledger, years ago, right? And, I don't like the seed words the ledger generated. I don't trust it anymore. I want to move on to a different wallet. I don't have to buy this whole entire kit again for $120 to $200. I could just buy another plate for $28, load it into my jig and put everything on there. I could give it, my friend became a Bitcoiner. I could let them borrow my kit, give them a plate. So this is like a tool that you're going to have for life. It's something that you're going to keep in your Bitcoin drawer somewhere with all your Bitcoin goodies. And it's easy to do. It's safe. The kit comes with one plate. If you're doing something like multi-sig, which I think someone in the chat mentioned, you get as many plates as you need for your multi-sig setup. We also have the sharding plates, which is right on the screen there. That's a way you could kind of do like a poor man's multi-sig, where you could shard your 24 words across 3 different plates. Each number sequence is a little bit different there, so that you need 2 plates to unlock all your seed words. If all your seed words aren't on one plate, so you could hide one at mom's, hide one at grandma's, hide one under your bed, or I don't know, bury one somewhere. And put them in geographically different locations, and at least you have a backup that's a little bit split up. If someone finds one plate, it wouldn't matter, right? We have support for Shamir too. We have the Shamir backup plates. I know Trezor is big into Shamir, and I believe all their wallets are defaulting to Shamir, starting with the Trezor State 5. So with this, we have the cheapest Shamir backup option. You could get a ton of different shares when you're setting something like that up. You could easily get it very cost effectively here, because you're just, you already bought your kit. You're just getting your plate now at this point. And like I said before, we do a ton of tests. It's titanium and it's a solid piece. So a lot of the tests are very obvious, but we just like to do that fire test. We like to do the water test. We've run this thing over with a steamroller before. There's video of that somewhere on our Twitter page. And we're starting to work on some different tests too now. We're working with a metal detecting treasure hunter. Like, this guy's legit. He has all the tools. He has access to fields where the Revolutionary War was fought, where the Civil War was fought, and he could like find whatever, is there on those fields. They give him access to it, like on these state parks. And we presented him with the idea of burying the seed plate and giving some tips and tricks there, because obviously it's something you could bury. You could just put this plate raw into the ground. There's no layers, loose pieces. It's going to survive. So we're going to have that video dropping soon. But one of the tips there that he gave me, he's like, yeah, bury it underground and then layer like different pieces of metal on top of it. So bury it like 2 feet deep, layer it with like 5 inches of dirt, and then put like, an aluminum can or a steel bolt on top of that, and keep like layering things. This way, if someone's looking for it with a metal detector, they're going to get discouraged. They're just going to be like, oh, this is a can, or this is a screw. There's nothing here. They're not going to get down to your seat plate. And he's going to provide some tips and tricks on how to do that, because I think that's something a lot of people do. You're obviously able to do that with the plate. And, we're going to get some guns to shoot it. I don't think something like that would ever happen in real life, but, running out of ideas to test, because this thing just won't break. It's not breaking down. So yeah, there's a lot more to come there, but yeah, I don't know. You guys have any questions at all?
Very, 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 very cool. I highly recommend it. This is what I personally use. This is the way to do it. And I've like literally gone through so many seed phrase storage solutions, like the little letter ones. I've had those before. And it's scary because it's one screw away from that little thing opening up and all those letters falling out, right?
Yeah.
What I like about and then also too, like, not to be specific for other companies, but a lot of other companies, they rely on punching
Like a
and
grid.
stuff.
Yeah.
The problem is that's kind of hard to read, right? What I like about this solution is, number one, is titanium, right? That's very unique. Not that many people use that metal. A lot of people use steel. And what I like about it is the simplicity factor. It's just one plate, and it's full on letters, right? And it's like the part where I don't want to say it's a pain in the ass, but it's somewhat time consuming, is the initial setup of you like literally stamping your letters into it. But the way that you should look at it is, first of all, you're only going to do that once. And number two, like, this is your wealth, right? Like, this is your money. That's part of the personal responsibility aspect. A lot of people sacrifice that sovereignty for convenience, but they don't realize what they're giving up in the process, right? So I love the way that the product is designed, and it makes the process of like hammering the letters incredibly easy. The Anvil has a tool. Maybe Opti, you could pull up the website. Yeah, exactly. It has like a thing where it makes it easy, where you can just put in the plate and you can go line by line.
Yeah.
So you don't get.
Each stamp has like a little line on the bottom there. You can see right below that A, there's a line, and that's what you use to line everything up, to make sure you're not really running out of room, because chances are you've never done something like this before. You don't want a typo along the way, so we want to make it as easy and foolproof, as possible there. So it also holds it in place nicely. Like, there's a lot of people who buy like sets on Amazon that don't have something that holds it. When you're stamping, your plate's bouncing everywhere, your stamps are bouncing around. There's just a lot of movement. This keeps everything nice and contained. So
100%.
And the hammer, right? It's like you said before, like, there's shortcuts you could take. Some people might not want to do it. They might perceive this as something that's a little more time consuming, which, to tell you the truth, for me, it's not, but I'm a little fast at it. But like the little tiles, those pieces, I think takes just as long. They're very tiny and hard to get into place. And then the hammer itself, right? It's proof of work, right? You are actually getting tools to hammer your seed words into a plate, for the rest of the time. So proof of work, right? We're buying the most sound money there is. We're holding it long term. We're being our own bank. You got to make sure you have the right tools, plates, hardware wallets to do that. Although you don't want to be the one that wrecks yourself, right? You want to be the Bitcoiner that decided to opt out. Opt out of fiat, get into Bitcoin, and then you're the reason that you lost it all. You're in a worse spot to begin with. So you're getting the right tools, materials to do it. Will just help you sleep a little bit better at night. Your grandkids will like you a little bit more, and all that good stuff. So And the good thing about the kit, like I said before, is you could reuse it. You could update things. Wallets are changing. Hardware wallets get better by the year. The technology gets better. People want touch screens. People want full keypads. And with that, it's an opportunity to update your seed words. Not to mention, you might have more than one wallet. You might want to diversify and not have all your eggs in one basket. So you get as many plates as you need and stamp it along versus buying something that's $100 plus every time. You just buy a plate that's $28 every time.
100%. And like, and specifically, like if you know that you've generated a seed properly, because it's such a rabbit hole, right? It's like you generate a seed on Ledger, and then 4 years later, you're like, eh. But if you know that you generate a seed properly and you stamp this into a stamp seed, like the plate, like you can keep that for the rest of your life. Like you're good, like you're Gucci, right? And the part with the time consuming aspect too, this is you're gonna write your seed words anyways, and you're gonna write that on a piece of paper. That shit takes a long time. It doesn't take a long time, but it's still time consuming. I would recommend, if you're gonna go through the process of taking self custody and storing your seed words, you have to do it properly. Do it properly, because I know what a lot of people tell themselves. It's like, I'll do a paper. You're just gonna be doing it twice, right? So if you do it right the first time, this is the type of thing that you can hand to your grandchildren 50 years from now, right? And you could literally just hand it to them. And that you have to store your seed words properly, because your seed words are your money. The hardware, right? Let's talk about the Bitcoin hardware wallets. It's just so funny that the chat is savage.
Yeah.
The hardware wallets, like, they're a piece of technology, right? They have batteries and they have circuit boards, and like over time, right? Like I personally, I replace my hardware wallets like every 3-4 years. And first of all, I think I'm addicted. Like if I open one of my drawers, I just have like 50 hardware wallets, just because that's the way I am.
Yeah.
But you replace them, like a newer model comes out, makes it more convenient, makes it easier to spend, and that's just kind of part of the process. This is the type of thing. There is absolutely no reason as to why you have to replace this. It's straightforward. It's like you store. This is how you store your generational wealth for generations. Anyways, so very, very happy to have James join us today.
Wait. Last question. Putting James on the spot because the chat wants to know when 12-word seed phrases plate. Is that right?
I think that's going to be pretty soon. Hopefully before the end of this year. We have some samples that we've played around with. I think I've given 1 or 2 of those samples out. We showed them off at the conference, and we've been teasing it a lot. Hopefully by December. I don't know. I have to let me double check on that, and I'll tweet it out with like a picture of it. But in the meantime, you could put your 12 on the 24-word plate, right? But I know how it is. You could be OCD. You want the actual size plate that's meant for 12, and to do it on that. So hopefully soon, guys. But another little tip you could do with the 24-word is you could put your 12 on there somewhere, maybe on the left, maybe on the right, maybe on the odd or the even, and throw some decoy words out there. This way, in case if you're worried about someone looking at the plate, or if you're not hiding it, like James Bond, or burying it underground or something, you could have some decoy words there. So you can make use for the rest of that plate, or you could store 2 wallets on it. But yeah, I know you want the 12-word. I'm rambling on. So hopefully by December, but yeah, I'll let people know on that. And a lot of people, I might as well bring it up. A lot of people wonder what the holes are for. Like, why do you have holes there? What does that mean? Obviously, you could, it's a 1/4-inch hole, standard size. You can mount this on a wall, and it's just screwed into the wall. The back is blank. To hide it somewhere, mount it under a desk. And another product to tease out is that we've been showing off at Nashville is a titanium security screws, titanium cover that you'll have like a nice like brick stack that's blank on both sides. If you just want to cover it up a little bit better. So that's what the holes are.
I saw it. I'm so excited for that. Yeah, that looks really cool. Anyways, guys, head over to stampseed.com today. Use promo code SIMPLY. Get 15% off anything on the store, and store your generational wealth properly. I can't emphasize enough how important this is. Trust me, like you're getting into Bitcoin, and you're like, let me just write it on a piece of paper. I promise you, this is totally, totally worth it for generational wealth. Stampseed.com, promo code Simply. I'm Nico. I'm your host for today, Simply Bitcoin Live. Today's October 17th, 2024. I'm streaming live from Paris, France. And my co-host for today is Optimus Fields. And of course, our guest is James from Stampseed. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing. And we'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Peace out, everybody. Go outside, touch grass, eat some steak. Take care.
You by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.